Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, February 17th, 2026 edition of the SANS and Storm Center's Stormcast. My name is Johannes Ulrich, recording today from Jacksonville, Florida. And this episode is brought to you by the SANS.edu undergraduate certificate program in applied cybersecurity. Xavier today took a look at, some of the malware evolution over the last few years, in particular when it comes to 32-bit versus 64-bit malware. Backwards compatibility can always be a little bit sort of an innovation hurdle in the sense that, if it still works, why change it? And that has been very true for malware in that most malware has for many years now been 32-bit, even though after 64-bit systems have become sort of common available and pretty much the default. But what Xavier noted was that lately there is about an even split between 64-bit and 32-bit malware. So it looks like there's a little bit of tipping point happening here where we will have more 64-bit malware than 32-bit. A little bit about the methodology here. Xavier used Malware Bazaar. Malware Bazaar offers a real nice sort of downloadable malware repository with daily files. And Xavier looked at a terabyte worth of compressed malware in order to compile the statistics. So it should be pretty good here and cover a pretty good percentage of the malware ecosystem. And I've mentioned before that password managers are pretty much must that you have to implement these days. The problem being that pretty much all of the big password managers, they opt for a cloud-based synchronization scheme, in part, for economic reasons, to be able to charge subscription fees. But the problem now becomes, how secure are those keys in the cloud? And of course, there's not a lot of transparency as to how these keys are exactly stored. Now, given how you have to authenticate to the cloud and such, you can draw some conclusions. But now we have a real nice comprehensive paper by researchers at ETH Zurich and the Università da Sibirsa Italiana, for mispronouncing that likely. The problem is, of course, that when you're dealing with cloud-based storage, you must store the key somewhere. And in the case of these password managers, the keys themselves are then encrypted with secrets only known to the user. But there are still a couple of issues, and some of them pretty much unfixable. 1Password sort of has an older document, paper, blog post where they talk a little bit about this. But for example, where it can be difficult to authenticate, in particular when you're sharing passwords within this password manager ecosystem, whether or not you're authenticating or whether you're sharing these keys with the correct individual. That's sort of one of the issues they're pointing out here. They looked at a number of different attacks and looked at sort of the four, I think, biggest vendors of password managers. So really a nice document, and hopefully some of these issues can be fixed. And, that maybe down the road, there will eventually be a non-cloud-based option, which I think only one or two of the sort of commonly used password managers offer right now. So without solid credential management like provided by some of those password managers, you often end up with simple text-based configuration files that contain secrets like API keys. And of course, they're ripe for the taking. The latest example is an Infostealer that was discovered that goes specifically after OpenClaw configurations. OpenClaw, the current sort of viral agentic AI tool that, of course, does interface with lots and lots of different APIs. In particular, some of these AI systems like Claude and OpenAI, that these agents often have substantial access to credits that the user bought for them to use. So no surprise here. Yes, the configuration file is easily found. It's in a standard location. I do believe that OpenClaw, at least as an option, adds support for things like 1Password that can serve as a more secure storage for these credentials. Well, and that's it for today. So thanks for listening. Thanks for liking and thanks for subscribing to this podcast. Did I miss a story? Well, please let me know. And thanks and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.